My name is Scott Jenkins, and I am one of a growing number of presenters who have the privilege of sharing a message with you on Sunday morning. And you are at the Next Generation Fellowship. And if you are feeling a certain energy of love, it's something that we strive to do here, to love you, to accept you and respect you, no matter where your spiritual journey is taking you, your human situations and circumstances. We really do strive for that. And how many years have we been doing that now? 4? 4 years, Next Generation or so. So a special hug and warm welcome to each one of you today. I am really excited. I'm really excited because this is the start of a new series that we are putting together. There it is. Gaining traction in your Christian walk. Now that term, that phrase might mean a lot of different things to people. So I've been thinking what it means to me and how a particular perspective we might share with you all on what one view of gaining traction in your spiritual walk might be. So the other day, I had an appointment in Chesterfield, and I came out of the place where I was at, and 2 doors down, I saw this. Anybody ever heard of CrossFit training? Oh, a lot of you have. Right on. That's great. CrossFit training is the latest and greatest, fastest way for holistic training, they say. It's quite a popular program, and it's spreading all over the United States. And it occurred to me that there's some corollaries here between gaining traction in our spiritual walk and this program, CrossFit. So I'm just going to compare 2 of them for you. In the CrossFit training program, they work you through 10 areas. Stamina, strength, flexibility, power, speed, agility, balance, coordination, and energy. In our program that's going over the next, including this Sunday, 9 weeks, we are going to approach 9 different ways that you can engage in your spiritual practice and get traction. Similarity there. But the one that's kind of fun for me is in the CrossFit program, when you do these varying activities, and no 2 workouts are the same. They do very different workouts. They go from one to the other, very new approaches. For example, I saw one guy doing a shuttle run back and forth. A lot of us have done those in gym class, between the lines. Only he was carrying a gunny sack full of stuff. I don't know what was in the gunny sack. Another one was carrying a light person back and forth. Now that seems a little more challenging to me, but another picture I saw is the whole class is jumping, trying to reach as high as they can in the air. So they're doing a lot of new activities that you don't normally think of when you do training, physical training. How many of us grew up with the training that was, repetitive? Run. If you're going to run every other day, 3 miles. If you're going to lift weights, 3 reps of 10 every other day. I mean, it's a repetitive, ongoing, same routine. Not so in CrossFit. Not so in our series, Gaining Traction. You are going to hear 9 different takes on your spiritual practice. Some of them will be traditional Christian activities that you've heard about before, but our speakers are going to bring to you very fresh, new insights in those practices relevant to the 21st century and relevant to getting traction in your spiritual journey. So what I was going to say is when you go through this CrossFit, they have a concept called muscle confusion. Muscle confusion. When you do all these varied activities in new ways, it supposedly confuses your muscles, and they respond much more quickly to conditioning. So they have muscle confusion leading to physical fitness. We have ego confusion responding to spiritual fitness. Or maybe let's take it a step further. Some of these practices, I think, will help us with ego deconstruction, leading to spiritual fitness. Ego, another name for ego is moral mind, the carnal mind, the little me, the egoic mentality, the false sense, the lower self, that kind of thing. So I'm going to invite you to consider these 9 weeks as a spiritual CrossFit training program to help you get traction in your spiritual journey and your spiritual growth and in experiencing God in your life. Before we go on to the next thing, let's just take a minute and a half, turn around to your neighbor and give him a warm fellowship welcome. So now we're going to dive into the next section, which is finding the power, passion, and poetry in your spiritual journey. So let me start by asking you guys, if you experience anything like I do, that sometimes I just can't get going to do my daily spiritual practice, that I am distracted, that I've got resistance. Anybody here ever feel that? Just a few people. Well, that's good. I'm not alone. That makes me feel better already. I feel accepted, respected, and loved now. What are some of the reasons this happens? Oh, for the previous thing. You're just a second behind us. Okay. What are some of the reasons that we get distracted? How do we get distracted from our spiritual practice? Lot to do. Too busy. What else? What else distracts us? Phone calls. Holy cow. People want to be comfortable. Emails I heard back there. Folks, I don't know whether to curse this thing or to bless this thing. Honestly. Are you with me on that? Yes. Oh my gosh. Phone calls, texts, messages, dings, dongs. I mean, for Pete's sakes, this thing really gets me distracted. What else? Any other reasons you can think of? The news. Yeah. Ooh, that's an interesting one. Did you hear that? You are a deep thinker. She said you don't want to face what you're really thinking about. Apparently they like that too. I heard that. There's a lot of things that get in the way of our doing our daily spiritual practice. And take heart, my friends, because this is not a new problem. This is a centuries-old problem. In fact, Brother Paul, from our Bible, from the Scriptures, experienced a very similar thing. In fact, he went even further to say that the things that he wants to do, he can't do. In fact, let me read it because I like the way that it's written. Paul says, I have the desire to do what is good, but I cannot carry it out. Anybody ever feel like that? Oh, yeah. I like it. Look, we got hands and everything. Ben, you're with me here. For what I do is not the good I want to do. No, the evil I do not want to do, this I keep on doing. Well, I certainly have lived that, and it can be very frustrating. It can be very frustrating. And I have a hunch that the leadership team that put this together knew that maybe getting traction in your spiritual journey would help us break through that. So we're going to be exploring that today. What is the benefit of being on your game, getting your spiritual practice on? What are some of the benefits that we've experienced when you've been in that zone and you've been on it? Less confusion. Ooh, I like that. Blessings you didn't even expect. What else? You see things through a positive lens, a spiritual lens. I like that. And things appear, as in good things, or not so good things? I like that. Things that were there that you weren't seeing. Janie? Peace in the midst of struggle. Doesn't that just hearing that, doesn't that make your heart feel better? Wow. Peace in the midst of struggle. Robin? Wow. Noticing people that need help around you, and you are motivated to do something about that. That's beautiful. Any others? Clarity. Going back to Brother Paul, he tells us if we live by the Spirit, the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and here's one I like, self-control. So we have a lot to gain by our spiritual practice. How do we bust through those barriers? How do we get to that spiritual practice that we just can't seem to get ourselves going? Going back to Paul one more time, he says in Hebrews, let us throw off everything that hinders. Everything that hinders. Let me just stop there. Can you think of one thing in your life right now that is hindering you from greater spiritual practice, greater spiritual understanding, greater spiritual development, from experiencing more of God in your life? Can you just think of one thing? Paul says, throw it off. And the sin that it so easily entangles us. Sin is just another name for things that separate us from good, God's good, from godliness. And let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us. Perseverance. That's an important word in spiritual practice, isn't it? Here's another one, patience. How many people here feel that your life is one of patience? That you're attracted to patient things. That the demands on you are patient demands. See where I'm going with this? Yeah. You know, when you have these kind of tools, everything is a soundbite world, right? You want answers? I got frustrated the other day because this phone didn't download something fast enough. And think about, gosh, 15, 20 years ago, there was no such thing as a download. You had to wait in the mail for weeks for something. Boy, have I changed. Maybe I'm the only one in the room that ever feels that way. But the wisdom spiritual teacher once wrote, the ego is impatient because its time is limited. The spirit is patient because it knows it is eternal. I really love that. So we've talked about some of the things that can get in the way of our spiritual practice. Today, the time that I have left, I would like to share 3 ideas that have been very helpful to me, and you can find them, I'm sure, well, I'll share with you things that have been written about it. 3 things that have been very helpful to me in busting through those barriers, in gaining traction in my spiritual practice, and seemingly move the mountains of resistance in me to that. And those 3 ideas are spiritual balance, not being distracted by phone calls, You did really well. Thanks. They don't even believe you. You did it so well. All right, back to those 3 ideas I'm going to share with you today. Spiritual balance, self-surrender, and surfboards. Yep, you heard me right, surfboards. Okay. This baby's been with me since 2003. I was in Hawaii on the island of Maui on a 2nd floor condominium overlooking a beach, and the wind was blowing for 3 days, and the waves were humongous, and there were surfers there. I found myself captivated by this one guy. He was so amazing. He had such courage, agility, coordination, power, and strength in his surfing. He would race up the face of this very big face of that wall of water and zoom back down, and then he'd go through the curl and come out the other end. He would even take his surfboard as he was coming back at the wave, put it nose into the wall of that thing and punch right through the wall and come out the other side. Wow, was he inspiring. I loved it. The next morning, I was out for a run. Nobody was out early in the morning. And I saw this lapping up against the beach. There was the bottom half wasn't around. Nobody was around. I thought, wow, that looks familiar. I looked at it, and I realized it was the surfboard of that guy that was so inspiring to me, at least the top half of the surfboard. There's a couple of lessons in this for me, and that's why I checked it through. You can even see the TSA's inspector back here all the way back to Missouri. They all looked at me like, what are you doing? So if you look at this surfboard, besides the name and the colors, what do you see? It's broken. What else do you see? Used. What else? Incomplete. Boy, this is a lot better than what I came up with. I like this. What did you say? Dirty. Dirty. Why is this dirty? Anybody know? Yes. Wax right here. Were you going to say something, Karen? Right. And it's dirty because, and if you're really nice to me, I'll let you come up afterwards. This is Maui sand in this wax. You can touch it. You can touch it. Okay, so this surfboard is a metaphor. The board is a metaphor for all the spiritual activities and spiritual practices that you could engage in. It's a tool. It's a tool to ride over the waves of life, to punch through the walls that we run into, to have dominion and mastery. It's a tool. So the board is a tool. The wax is a metaphor for your daily spiritual practice. Because if you don't have wax on this board, and you're on this side of the board, and you're on a wave and a wave hits you, what's going to happen? You're just going to be right gone from the board. That tool, that idea, that substantive thing that you heard on Sunday, that you read 2 weeks ago, a month ago, you're not going to really be able to get the fullness of it because you don't have any wax. You don't have any traction. You don't have your daily spiritual game on. When you wax a board, you put 2 coats on. The bottom coat is to make bumps on the board, and the top coat is soft wax so that you stick to it. So our daily spiritual practice is really a practice about preparing our thought so that the amazing inspirations we get in our spiritual activities stick to it, and we can work with it, and we can maneuver with it. We can ride over the waves. We can punch through the waves. We can work on those things that would try to knock us off because we have traction, we're sticking to it, and it's sticking to us. Does that make sense? I'd like to move on now to spiritual balance. And I have this, so I'd like to speak about the spiritual balance found in mind, body, spirit. There's so much written about this, and we could spend weeks just talking about this. We could have a series on this, but we don't. Have you ever had 4 wheels that are out of balance? What happens? Sherry says, came down to church today with that. Yeah, wobbly. What else happens when you're out of alignment and your wheels are unbalanced? It pulls you off course, right? When you're out of balance, it pulls you off course. Much has been written about the need for the balance of mind, body, spirit. Why? Because mind, body, spirit is sort of how we show up in the human experience. It's all interrelated. A weakness in one area impacts the other areas. So we want to have a balance between all 3 of those. So I'm just going to hit one idea in each of those 3 to suggest that we might look at investing and growing in and balancing in. Mind. Let's take mind first. There's a lot we could talk about here, but I want to suggest one thing. One of the resistances we run into in our spiritual practice is we get comfortable. Somebody said that over, I think, on this side. Annie did. We get comfortable. We go back to those same spiritual practices we've been doing. And one of the ideas in CrossFit training is that repeated use of the same thing has diminishing returns. So we want to expand our cognitive abilities, our awareness. Reading, attending seminars, listening to talks that stretch you beyond where you're at now, that acquaint you with new ideas. Now, this next generation has done a really good job at this because we've read books together and we've met with people. We need to continue doing that. Enhance your cognitive development. There's a very clear correlation between cognitive development and spiritual development. So you need to expand. That's what we've learned. We need to expand our consciousness, become aware of new, fresh takes on spirituality and God. Read what other religions have to say about it, and then come back to your foundation. And what happens for people who have been doing this? What happens? It's fresh, new, and exciting. Strengthening, clarifying. We have a sense of being reborn in that common foundation that we have in our faith path. Body. Body's about how you show up. How are we showing up? It's important when you consider that Paul tells us that our body is the temple of the Holy Spirit. It's important to ask ourselves, are we caring for that temple? How are we doing that? Are we just turning away from it and not looking at the effects that our nourishment program, our daily regimen, weekly, is having or not having on our bodies? It's an important thing to create the balance in that. But body also means how you're showing up in terms of the programs you're running. The programs you're running. Now, some of you, that might be a new thought. What does that mean, programs you're running? Well, we have personality programs that are running, and most of us aren't even aware of them. There's a wonderful program called the Enneagram that helps you discover the program you're running. And this is called shadow work. Shadow work is really important to growing and having a balance in your spiritual practice. How many people here have heard of the Enneagram or are involved with an Enneagram program of some sort? Yeah, over half of you. That's great. If you want to know more about the Enneagram, see me afterwards and I'll point you to some local resources. There's another program called the Diamond Approach, and that's just as helpful. There's another one on the body that I love, and it's presence, becoming present to your current experience right where you are. Eckhart Tolle, how many people have heard of Eckhart Tolle? Eckhart Tolle wrote a fabulous book on the power of now, and that's about being present to how you're showing up and being able to see where you need, with spiritual discernment and spiritual inspiration, where you need to make changes and find that balance. Lastly, spirit. Oh, I'm doing real good on time here. This is good. Gee, that makes me wonder, what did I forget? Spirit. The Latin root of spirit is spiritus or spirare. It means to breathe, to breathe, to breathe in. What is this? This is really about inspiration, isn't it? It's bringing the light into your heart and feeling the joy of life, feeling the joy of your spiritual journey, feeling inspired in godliness, inspired in godlike things, in spiritual things. It's so important to have that balanced in your spiritual practice. You know, if you just develop one of these things to the exclusion of the other, what happens? if let's just say you're really into the mind, so you develop your intellectual capacities and you are reading every latest and greatest book, you are familiar with all the latest philosophies and ideas. For example, Ken Wilber, The Philosophy of Everything, he wrote a book on that, I think it was. What happens if you do that to the exclusion of body and spirit? Well, you just become an intellectual without a soul. What happens if you just work on the body and you're just totally aware exactly of your body, and you're working on all the things that improve your body and how you're showing up, only to the exclusion of spirit and to the exclusion of your development of your mind and your cognitive abilities? Will you fall into spiritual, what was I talking about? Spirit? Body. This is really embarrassing, man. I can't even remember. How can I expect you guys to follow me if I can't even follow me? Body, yeah. So you become, what happens when you just become, you develop that to the exclusion of others, is that you end up chasing the latest fad with every single thing that comes down the pike. Without spiritual discernment, you're just chasing your tail. What happens if you're on the spirit end and all you're into is inspiration? That's all that you look for. Inspiration, nothing else matters. You end up being in what's called spiritual bypassing. If you don't know what that means, I'd be happy to explain it to you, but there's a book called Spiritual Bypassing that is extremely valuable to the spiritual practice. Spirit is really important. One of the wisdom teachers said, if light is in your heart, you will find a way home. Isn't our spiritual journey just finding our way home? Home to who we really are, our divine nature, home to God, to experiencing the love, the palpable love and presence of God. It's a journey home. So we need that light. So to finish this section, balance then centers us. As we develop each of the areas in a balanced way, it centers us. Think about that surfer. He's sticking to his board, he's centered, he's coordinated, the waves come and knock him around. When you're balanced in these three things, you get up faster. It's like being spiritually fit. You've got traction. You get up faster when you're knocked down in life, and you know how to respond. You get back into the game and you're on it, just like a phenomenal artist that fails in one painting and then gets right back on and gets at the easel and starts painting again, or a writer who had a terrible day writing that day, gets right back in the saddle and starts writing again, or a sports person, same thing. So the balance centers us, it makes us more adaptable, flexible, and coordinated. Lately, I've been training for a half marathon, and I was just doing the running for a while. A half marathon is 13.1 miles. About 2-3 weeks ago, I added biking, which is cross training. Just what we're talking about here with our spiritual practices, CrossFit spiritual training, different activities. And when I would hit a hill, after I started biking, cross training, I could run up that hill substantially faster than when I was just training the running, just doing the running as part of my training. So there is a great benefit by spiritual CrossFit training. In the next 8 weeks, you're going to hear a lot of wonderful ideas that will help you have that balance. I'd like to move on now to the next topic, and this is self-surrender. This is something that's really in my heart right now. I have spent probably 2.5 years working on self-surrender. And of all the spiritual things I've done, maybe it's just because it's where I'm at today, this has probably impacted me the most. And I want to talk about what that means today. Here's a picture I found in Mother Mary. I want to read to you a story that you all know. You've heard about it from since you were kids. It's the beginning of the Christmas season. We usually hear about this. But I want to focus on a couple of things in it. This is the story of Mary. When the angel Gabriel comes to Mary and says to her, "Greetings, you who are highly favored. The Lord is with you. Wouldn't that be a lovely way to have a greeting? Somebody telling you you are highly favored? How does that feel? Greetings. You are highly favored. Does that feel good? Yeah. God says that to us every morning, every night, 24/7, 365. Each one of you are highly favored. Mary was greatly troubled at his words because she's probably never seen an angel say that to her before and wondered what kind of greeting this could be. But the angel said, "Don't be afraid, Mary. You have found favor with God. You will be with child and give birth to a son. You are to give him the name Jesus. He will be great and will be called the Son of the Most High." Nothing is impossible to God, the angel said to her. Now, at this point, we don't know from the Bible how long it was before Mary responded. I put myself in that circumstance, and I would probably be just wondering what in the world I'm supposed to do. But Luke records that she does respond next with this: "I am the Lord's servant." I've been asking myself, when was the last time I was knocked off kilter and the very first thing I did was declare that I am the Lord's servant, that I am in the house of God, that I serve God and none else? Then she says, and this is the one that's really getting to me lately, "May it be to me as you have said." May it be to me as you have said. That, my friends, is 100% humble self-surrender to God. When was the last time you felt you totally surrendered to God, to what God has in store for you? Really let go of your wants, how you think you want to be, and just turned your life over to God. We all know the story. Mary went on to nourish and care for and take care of the baby Jesus. So here's the point I want to share with you. Self-surrender is so powerful. There's such an energy with surrendering to God. But it goes with the energy in this story for me. Each of you have the divine seed within you. And as you self-identify as God's child, as a servant of Mother, Father, God, the source of the universe, the infinite, everlasting, all-power, all-mightful God, and then you surrender to that, then all you need to do is just nourish your spiritual journey in that. And you will experience the birth of your Christ idea within you in your life. Mary didn't put that divine idea in her. God brought that to her. God brings to you your true divine nature. And in this human experience, right here, in the worst part of your human experience, your divine destiny is to experience the birth of your Christ nature, your Christ identity, your perfect nature, even on this human plane. So let's take a lesson from Mary. Self-identify as God's servant. Surrender everything in our life. Like Paul said, let go of anything that hinders. And then nourish our spiritual practice, which awakens us to that glorious nature that we are. We always have been. It's a progressive awakening, but it's already here. There's a poem that I love that kind of captures an element of this. It's by a spiritual teacher. Some of you I know have heard of this spiritual teacher. He goes back a few years. His name is Rumi. He's a Sufi, great Sufi master, a mystic. This is a 2-stanza poem, so don't go dazing on me here. This is real short. You might miss it. Hang in here with me. How the grape seed transcended itself. Through companionship, a grape grows from the earth. But first, a grape seed graciously consorted in solitary intercourse with the dark earth. It effaced itself entirely in the ground until no color or scent, no red or yellow hue remained. After that effacement, its constriction ceased. It opened its wings, expanded, and sped on its way. Since it became selfless in the presence of its origin, it transcended its limited form, and its real essence was revealed. So in closing, the ideas we've been talking about to help us find more power, passion, and poetry in our spiritual practice could include sticking to it so it sticks to you, balancing it so you are centered, surrendering to it so its greatness can come forth in you and the world. And earlier we put this in the context of our spiritual CrossFit training program that Next Generation is launching today over the next 8 weeks. And the goal of that is to help you get much greater traction in your spiritual journey, to broaden and deepen your spiritual foundation, and to experience a sense of God's love and presence in your life. So, I want to offer you a challenge before we finish today. Here's the challenge. Give some thought to this. Come to this gathering for the next 8 weeks. Find one new idea for your spiritual practice that's new to you each Sunday. Just one. Incorporate it into your spiritual practice Monday through Saturday of that week. Something totally new to you. Bring it into your spiritual practice. Try to get going with it Monday through Saturday. Put that wax on each day. Then do the same thing the next Sunday. After 9 weeks, you will have 9 new spiritual practices to add to your spiritual practice quiver. In the end, you'll have these 9 new aspects, and you will be well on your way to a new level of spiritual fitness. You will have found much more traction, I am sure, in your spiritual journey. And then, based on personal experience, I can tell you, warn you, buckle your seatbelt. Buckle your seatbelt, because the transformation will be in full-fledged process. And you will find new experiences coming to you that are inspiring. And the last thing I will say is, I think, this is Scott now, when we're all done, and let's do this as a group, let's do this spiritual fitness challenge as a group. I think when we're all done, at the end of those 9 weeks, we ought to come together and party, right? Come together here and have some treats and talk about what happened to us. How did all that effort we made in that Monday through Saturday and the new ideas, how did that change our lives? Because we learn so much from each other, don't we? We want to share with each other. We'll find new ideas even from that. So if you like that last idea, I hope you're going to accept the spiritual fitness challenge, okay, regardless. But if you like the last idea of coming together, why don't you email Next Generation that you really like that idea? And what's the address, Karen, to send that to? That email address? I can't remember. Next Generation CS Fellowship at Gmail. And if you don't remember that, just ask Karen. Send an email that says, I like that idea and I want a party. And I suspect that the leadership team will be convinced if enough people send that email to schedule it. Okay? Does that sound good? All right. You guys have been a wonderful, attentive audience. I appreciate it so much. What I'd like to do now is lead us in prayer. And we'll get to the offering after that. Thank you, Pat. So let's just take a deep breath. Maybe close our eyes. Exhale. Just a second, feel your shoulders and relax your shoulders. Let's bring our thoughts right to where we are, to this moment. And listen for what Spirit has to say to you. Oh, dear God, Sacred One, hear our prayers, spoken, heartful, and sung. Help us know, help us feel when we're low, when we kneel. You are here. You are true. You guide our steps through joy and fear. As the mist on the cool fall morning hovers above sleeping fields of gold, bring your dawning light of the divine us to melt away the shadows of old. Awaken us to sacred presence as morning light petals open. In daily visit together, pure essence, the beauty each moment unfolds. Inspire us to steps brand new, to higher practices and stands, honoring our best spiritual views and the healing touch of hands. Help us cast off self-imposed shackles. In the divine us, finding traction, dancing in praise and ways, multiform in action. Mother, Father, lead us to our heart's eternal hope, love, happiness, peace for all, none left out, no more wall. Help us find us in the divine, all in all. Amen. All right, it's now time for our offering. 10% of what we collect at Next Generation goes to folks in need, to charities, to special circumstances. So we appreciate all that you give so that Next Generation can carry out its help and its ministries. While we're doing this also, I want to mention a couple of announcemements. On September 27th, we are celebrating and strengthening relationships here at the church. It starts at 7 p.m. If you have any questions about that, please see Maria. Maria, please hold your hand up. Thank you. We are serving a dinner again at the Bridge on September 30th. Starts at 4:30 p.m. If you have any questions about that, see Laverne, maybe, or Karen, whoever's organizing that. Karen in the back. Thank you, Karen. And lastly, on October 4th or 6th, what does that mean? Who's doing? They repeat. Thank you. October 4th or 6th, we have a book discussion group. Dick, do you want to just intro that book real quick?
This is a book written by a speaker coming to present here later in October, Danielle Schroyer, and the book is Down to Breaking God. And the two discussion groups Friday night and Saturday afternoon. There's a copy of the book on that.
People I've heard that have been reading the book have really enjoyed the book, and it's rare that you get to meet an author. Is that going to be here in our church, of an emergent voice? And when we were talking about leading edge thinking, breaking new ground, getting out of your old box there, this is a good example for finding your new ideas. We love doing that. I think that is it for now. So next is our wonderful band. Oh, I love this song.
Everybody, please, let's stand. Put your hands together. Now, you know, we have an amazing God, and we may pray to him, and we think, well, why doesn't he answer my prayer? But I'm here to tell you, he is an on-time God. Like this. He's on time. 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 Oh yes, he's on time. He's on time. Amen. Amen. Amen.
You guys rock. Wow, wow. Wow, I can just feel the energy pouring out of that. Woo! Thank you, Ben. That was amazing. So, our blessing. May the divine grape seed within you surrender into God's source, and your spiritual practice render you more spiritually fit to live your divine destiny. Have a wonderful week. And let's hear it for that band again. That was so awesome. Yeah.